Well, overnight, more stabbings in the United Kingdom, more violence from illegal immigrants pouring across the borders, more boats showing up with illegal migrants. What is happening in Europe as it descends into chaos? They will call you a racist. They will call you a bigot if you call out what is happening there. And if you try to point out how what's happening there is about to happen to the United States of America. Race riots across the country and more illegal immigrants causing violence and destruction in these countries. For that, we want to bring in today, new to the show, is Zigby Furneaux. He is his journalist and host of Man on the Run, and joins us, who knows deeply about what's happening in this part of the world and can shed some light on all of this latest violence. You've been doing a great job of covering this. Zigby, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Clayton. Thanks for having me on.
So let's just bring our audience up to speed here. We've been, of course, covering the violence over the past couple of weeks, the horrific stabbings of those girls at the dance studio, and then more, of course, people pouring into the streets. And it's been fascinating to watch the propaganda, right? It's been unbelievable to watch the propaganda from the mainstream media. If you call out this violence, you call attention to it, you're labeled a bigot, you're labeled a racist, and of course the clampdowns on social media. So just going to paint a picture where we are right now here in the middle of, towards the end of August.
Okay, so, I mean, today there have been more stabbings. There was another stabbing in London today. 2 days ago, there was a woman and some children also stabbed just outside Manchester. These things aren't being reported properly by the media. They're more interested on talking about people who have posted hurty words on social media and are fast tracking these people into jail within 24 hours. Some of these are OAPs, old age pensioners, sort of in their 60s, in their 70s, no previous record. They are going through the criminal justice system, the two-tier justice system that we now have in the UK, and they are in jail within 24 hours. The problem here is that the prisons are already overpopulated in the UK, and now we have a one-in, one-out system. Operation Early Dawn, I believe it's now called. So if you're a rapist, if you're a murderer, if you're a robber, you could get let out of jail early because somebody has said something that somebody deems offensive online, which to me is just absolute madness.
What do you say to those who say that this violence is being staged? And I've definitely seen videos of burnings of the Israeli flag and other things like that. So can you talk about some of the staging? It seems like anytime you see one of these events, or you see a lot of this chaos, we're seeing it at the Democratic National Convention as we speak. Antifa infiltrating different riots in order to rabble rouse. So you see this on a regular basis. What do you say to those who say, all of this so-called violence, these stabbings, it's all fake. It's all being staged. What do you say to those people?
I don't think it's fake. I think some things are being encouraged, and certainly the way that Keir Starmer has gone about this since the start of his premiership, he has turned groups of the UK against each other. There is no left, there is no right. There is far left and there is far right. He only spoke yesterday in Northern Ireland calling anybody that was right or far right, he was calling them racists. You're labeling your own people, and people are going to start going, well, if I'm a bloody racist now, I'll start acting like a racist. That's not okay, but you can see how this can affect people of working class who have already felt like they've been forgotten by their government, forgotten by their peers, and just left out to pasture. And now the government is telling them that they're racists. It's enraging them. And they're not racist. My comments, I like to think that my comments on social media haven't been racist. I'm not calling for any violence. I want exactly the opposite to that. But there needs to be a safe way for people to protest against what's happening in the UK, because it is becoming a police state, and it's absolutely horrific.
As a public figure, as a person who's active on social media, as a journalist, do you fear? I mean, you think that your words haven't crossed this new line, this new legal line in the UK? How do you feel about that right now?
It's a tricky one for me. I'm not in Portugal. Sorry, I'm in Morocco at the moment. I'm about to move to Portugal next week. I haven't been back to the UK for a couple of months. I'm worried that somebody will deem what I've said online as inciting violence. I certainly don't believe that that's what I have been doing, but you don't know the parameters of this. Is it now illegal in the UK to stand up for what you believe in? It's looking that way at the moment, and this is horrific. I mean, Macron just posted online not so long ago that if Elon Musk doesn't start complying with the terms and conditions of his contract with the EU, that X is going to be shut down in the European Union. They're also talking about doing this in the UK. This is the end of free speech in Europe. This is a World Economic Forum agenda in my book. This is a push for a globalist totalitarian society.
So let's talk about the World Economic Forum. Let's talk about this globalist agenda. What do you think the ultimate goal is for Europe with this mass invasion of migrants? And we should all point out, I mean, I think it's very, very important. I always try to point it out on the United States side. The reason we see this destabilization in these countries, in Syria, as friend of the show Kevork Almasian points out, there was no such thing as a Syrian refugee before the West decided to destabilize Syria and destroy that country. Syria was one of the most peaceful countries in the world, one of the safest countries in the world, until the West decided to destabilize it. So there was no such thing as a Syrian refugee before. Same with Yemen. Same with Sudanese refugees. All of these refugees are as a result of Western interventionism, imperialism, moving into these countries, robbing and raping their minerals and resources, and taking over their labor, and all of those things. So I always want to make sure that that's put out there, whether it's Haiti, whether it's Honduras, whether it's Syria, or whether it's Yemen, right? That's where it starts. So what now we're seeing, though, is that was the catalyst. Now we're seeing the end of that, which is this mass migration patterns, and we pretend like we don't know how it started. But what's the goal?
Well, I think you have to realize that the people that are coming over illegally on the boats from France to the UK are primarily fighting age men. There's no women, there's no children, or if they are, they're a rarity. In my opinion, women and children flee war and men run to it. That's the way that it works. When there's an accident on an airplane, it's women and children off first. So why are fighting age males coming over to the UK in their thousands, in their tens of thousands? You have to also remember as well, the UK is a much smaller country than the US. It takes a lot less people to destabilize a nation than it would do in America. You've got vast land masses and millions upon millions of people. So although it's having your effect on your population, on your people, it's easier to sort of test it and practice it somewhere like the UK. And I feel like that's what's happening. One thing is increase facial recognition cameras, preventing people from going into certain areas. They're now talking about a tax per mile system for your car. These are all things that anybody who has followed the WEF agenda for the last few years will realize that these are goals of the World Economic Forum. And then right on cue, we've got our next pandemic about mpox or monkeypox.
Right.
If you can step back and you can do some small amount of research, it's all there. You just have to look at the World Economic Forum YouTube channel. You can see how Bill Gates talks about we need to reduce the population of the Earth because it's overcrowded, and the best way to do that is through vaccination. I was vaccinated twice from COVID, and I had a stroke after one, and I had a heart attack after the other. So I know what it's like to be vaccine damaged, and I certainly wouldn't comply with any of this coming up. That's my personal opinion. Anybody watching can do whatever they want to do, but certainly from my point of view, I just won't take the risk.
I mean, connecting the dots on all of this, absolutely right. I mean, it is about replacement, it is about control, and it is about clamping down on our freedoms. And of course, the World Economic Forum is not in favor of borders, doesn't believe in nation states, and wants this control. And so does the United Nations, by the way. And they need an army. They need to raise an army of young fighting age men. And where do you get them? You get them from these destabilized countries with the promises of some sort of money, whatever, in order to turn these these men into agents of the United Nations as an army. I think you're absolutely right about that. I got to ask you though, after you had this stroke, I'm sure my audience is thinking it. You had a stroke. How soon was it after you had taken the shot that you had this stroke? And then
it was about.
did you decide to go back and then have the second one?
So I used to run a pub in West Sussex in the UK, and to reopen the pub after lockdown, it was very clear that I needed to get the vaccine. I also had just started a charity delivering aid to Ukraine at the time, so we were driving over to Ukraine with 12 van loads of supplies for the refugees crossing over at the Poland-Ukraine border. I wasn't allowed out of the country unless I got the vaccine. So I got the vaccine. About 2 months afterwards was when I had the symptoms of a stroke. I was out at a race day with my family. Luckily, there was an ambulance very nearby. And my wife just said to me, one side of your face is completely drooped. It stayed like that for 2 weeks. I still get it reoccurring now. Every time I get the symptoms of a migraine, one side of my face droops down. It happened to me only last week. And then... yeah, the heart attack came it was about 8 months after my second one. At that point, I hadn't really woken up. I didn't really connect the dots. You start going on this journey, you start piecing everything together. I'm 41 years old. I'm fit and healthy. I've been active my entire life. I don't just wake up one morning and have a stroke or have a heart attack. There is contributing factors to this.
For sure. And I think many people go through this journey of being awakened. Some people in our audience have been awakened for many, many years, and that's wonderful. And then others are, just have found our show for the first time and have just recently awakened to the lies that the government has been foisting upon them. So everyone goes through, a different stage in their journey. I'm glad that you are part of the awakened population now and can be added to the truth teller mix. So I'll get you out of here on this, Zigby. Where do you think things are going in the UK? What do you think is going to happen over the next few months?
Well, I think that the so-called far-right thugs are not going to and the UK government needs to be prepared for that. And that doesn't necessarily mean violence, but there will be pushback, and there needs to be pushback. Because we need to fight for the things that we believe in our country, our way of life. And those things need to be protected. And this agenda, this WEF agenda, in my opinion, needs to be stopped. And Keir Starmer, he is a WEF crony. He's definitely on the payroll. He's definitely doing their bidding. And to be honest with you, I think there needs to be a vote of no confidence in his leadership. But whether we get that with the Labour Party having such a vast majority in the Houses of Parliament now, who knows? At the moment, UK looks like it's being run by a dictator.
Well, my guest has been Zigby Furneaux. He's the host of Man on the Run, a journalist who's been tracking all of this. Good luck on your big move, and prayers for you and your family over there as well. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You too. Thanks, Clayton. Take care.